Hey everyone, Josh Hayes here for ScoreStreak.com, and today I want to talk about when you should be stacking your DFS lineups and when you should be going for lineup balance. So let's go ahead and start off here with the stacking strategy. Most of you are familiar already with how stacking works. For those of you who aren't, the process of stacking for fantasy baseball in DFS is loading your offensive lineups, your offensive positions here with 4 or 6 players all from one team. Usually you go 1 through 6 or 1 through 4 if you can make the prices work out and afford it, in order to take advantage of a juicy matchup against a bad pitcher in a good ballpark. So obviously the Colorado Rockies were a popular stack a lot of the time this season. I think the Boston Red Sox, provided you can get the salaries to work out, are going to be a popular stack. St. Louis Cardinals with their offense is often a stack. LA Angels this year too is going to be a team that you can seen pop up as a popular stack so far. So those are just a couple examples of how that works. Now, obviously, the upside of that is when you take advantage of a good matchup, and if you've loaded your lineup with Rockies and Tulo and Arenado and Corey Dickerson all go off, you're in prime position to sweep the board, provided you hit with your pitcher there as well. So that's the advantage of obviously stacking lineups. But the question is, when should you be stacking and when should you be going for lineup balance? So I'm going to just clarify here, but I feel strongly that stacking is just basically a GPP only play in most cases, and I think there's maybe 1 or 2 exceptions, and I'll talk about what those 2 exceptions may be. But in general, it's a GPP play because you're trying to get the into a situation where you get a high-scoring game where the players that you put up a ton of runs or RBIs, home runs on the board, and you've got all those players locked into your lineup. You got all the best players along, and you hit with the pitcher, and then you take down the top spot in the GPP. So that's how what you're trying to do is in terms of stacking. The reason why you would not do that, generally speaking, in cash games is because if you loaded your team up with Rockies in a stack and then played that in a 50-50, and for whatever reason that pitcher you were trying to jam against with that stack ends up shutting you down, you're done. You have no chance to cash in those cash games. Whereas if you go for lineup balance and you're trying to take the optimal player given the price point that you can afford at each position, and you're going for lineup balance there, if you miss on 1 or 2 guys, if you only had, Tulowitzki, but you didn't necessarily have Arenado at third and Corey Dickerson in the outfield as well, and William Rosario at catcher, and you just missed on Tulo, your lineup's not dead. You can afford 1 or 2 dead spots in fantasy baseball, provided you had a couple other studs who hit some home runs, your pitcher performed well with a bunch of strikeouts and a win. I actually had, I think, 2 zeros in my lineup yesterday and still ended up cashing across the board on DK and FanDuel. So something to keep in mind there with what you want to do with lineup balancing. Lineup balancing is the clear option in terms of cash games whenever you're playing the double ups, the 50-50s, the triple ups, the quintuple ups. Something interesting too on ScoreStreak there is they'll actually allow you to play 7 players from one team. So you can go with a complete stack with 7 out of 9. They do require you to use 1 player from 3 different teams. So you could go into the entire offensive 1 through 6 stack if you wanted to, and take the pitcher on that team there as well. The reason why I wouldn't recommend that for ScoreStreak purposes is because they don't allow multi-entries in GPPs, and because there's no salary restrictions on ScoreStreak, you basically should be taking the optimal player given the availability on the schedule for today for total bases and for 2 and 1 in hits and 1 total base. So most of those optimal plays aren't on more than 1 team. They only usually have like maybe 2 studs per team that I could think of. I often play V-Mart and Miguel Cabrera together, and maybe Tulo and Arenado, or sometimes Corey Dickerson. I might play together Bautista and Encarnacion, or Trout and Pujols. Those are the only 2 examples I could really think of where I would play 2 guys or more from 1 team on ScoreStreak. So it just doesn't make a ton of sense for you to stack in general in ScoreStreak since there's no salary restriction. So there's that. The one caveat, or the 2 examples that I was talking about that I mentioned earlier for when you may use some sort of stack in a 50-50 is if you go with sort of a double stack, or even a double stack, I probably still would lean towards a GPP, but the triple stack option is where you take maybe the number 3 hitter and the leadoff hitter, the number 2 and the number 4 at 3 different from 3 different teams, and so you have maybe those were the 3 best options for you to stack in terms of GPPs for that day. So if you took those 3 options and rolled that into 1 lineup, you still have some level of lineup balance. So, and you end up spreading out your risk just a little bit more. So if two of those players end up getting into a situation where they got dominated by the pitcher, you still have the rest of your lineup with those other two pieces of your triple stack to help fill out your fantasy roster and score some fantasy points for you. So long story short, if you're going for GPPs, then you're going stack, stack, stack all the way. That's the way to go. It's a proven strategy that definitely wins. No need to stack on ScoreStreak, and you should be going for lineup balance for the most part, unless it's a very short slate. Today's actually one of those days. And you want to go for lineup balance in your 50-50s. If you have any questions, make sure you hit me up on Twitter. My Twitter handle is @RotoBaseballPod. You can tweet and follow ScoreStreak on Twitter @ScoreStreaker. A lot of great promos, 100% deposit bonus, 2 weekly free rolls going on each and every week, and they just randomly decided to give away $200 StubHub credits to the top fantasy scorers over the weekend, just on Friday and Saturday. They're always popping up with these random great promos on ScoreStreak. So make sure you check out the ScoreStreak link below to check out the website and follow us on Twitter. And if you have any questions, make sure you hit us up. Good luck on all your fantasy matchups, everybody.